Hey everybody, this is Joe Joseph and this is the DailySheeple.com's Daily News Brief. You know, just when you thought that things were going to be okay, now that President Trump is in the house, Google comes out today and talks about permanently banning 200 fake news sites. And this is not going to stop, folks. This is going to continue to go on because not only is the mainstream media butthurt, but also the globalists are butthurt at the fact that they are quickly losing power. And one would have to wonder if that is an illusion or if that is for real. But the Daily Sheeple has this great piece, mirrored Zero Hedge's piece. It says the crackdown's begun. In a blog post by Scott Spencer, director of product management for sustainable ads, posted on Wednesday, Google said it has banned 200 publishers from accessing its AdSense advertising for posting fake news stories. Google said it cracked down on sites which contained 1, ads for illegal products, 2, misleading ads, 3, bad ads on mobile, 4, ads trying to game the system, and 5, and my favorite, promoting and profiting from bad sites. But the emphasis was on the so-called fake news category, which has dominated media buzz for the past 2 months. So how did Spencer explain his actions? Just like this. He said, in 2016, we saw the rise of tabloid cloakers, a new type of scammer that tries to game our system by pretending to be news. Cloakers often take advantage of timely topics, a government election, perhaps a trending news story or a popular celebrity, and their ads can look like headlines on a news website. But when people click on that story about, say, Ellen DeGeneres or aliens, they go to a site selling weight loss products, not a news story. We've had a long-standing policy prohibiting AdSense publishers from running ads on sites that help people deceive others, like a site when you buy fake diplomas or plagiarize term papers. In November, we expanded on these policies, introducing a new AdSense misrepresentative content policy. Now, this helps us to take action against website owners misrepresenting who they are and that deceive people with their content. Now, Google, of course, has faced criticism over its handling of fake news stories, including allowing a fake news website to rise to the top of its results, displaying an incorrect story claiming that Donald Trump had won the popular vote. In his post explaining how Google attempts to crack down on bad ads, Spencer explained that Google has expanded its policy against misleading websites in November, leading to the crackdown. He said from November to December 2016, we reviewed 550 sites that were suspected of misrepresenting content to users, including impersonating news organizations. We took action against 340 of them for violating our policies, both misrepresentation and other offenses, and nearly 200 publishers were kicked out of our network permanently. In total, Google took down 1.7 billion ads that they found in violation of their policies in 2016, more than double the 780 million they removed in 2015. And it wasn't just fake news, folks. Google provided the following examples of common policy violations among bad sites in 2016. So they had 47,000 sites for promoting content and products related to weight loss scams. They took action on more than 15,000 sites for unwanted software and disabled 900,000 ads for containing malware. And finally, they suspended around 6,000 sites and 6,000 accounts for attempting to advertise counterfeit goods like imitation designer watches. Now, folks, this is something that, has been going on now for a while, and this narrative is going to continue, especially over in Europe, and I'll get to that in a minute. But it's funny how Google doesn't define what a news organization is. They only say that they are impersonating a news organization. However, they can't tell you what a news organization is. And the reason why they can't tell you is because if they define it, they pigeonhole themselves. And they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. Much like the government or anybody else cannot define what fake news is or what a fake news site is. Because if they do, they would, of course, have to ban CNN. They would have to ban ABC, CBS, Fox News, you name it, they'd have to ban them all. Why? Because they all do the same thing. And it's no different than independent media. The only difference is, and I have to say this, that there should be less leeway, less slack afforded to these mainstream media organizations simply because they have the resources to be able to put the manpower and put the time into funding validation of any stories they go down. Whereas independent media is most of the time doing it out of the kindness of their heart and or do not have the resources with which to go and often fact check or maybe take it to the next level. That's not to say that we don't or any other independent news agency doesn't, but you understand that a mainstream media outlet definitely has the resources to be much more thorough and provide much better content, theoretically, to the people, which does not happen. Now, over in the EU, according to DW.com, they're expanding their anti-fake news task force. Listen to this. An EU agency set up to counter Kremlin disinformation campaigns will receive extra resources as Europe faces two major elections. But the East Stratcom task force only has a team of 10 to debunk fake news stories. The European Union is stepping up attempts to counter fake news spread by the Kremlin. According to EU Foreign Affairs and Security Policy spokesman, the bloc East Stratcom task force will get additional employees in 2017, just as France and Germany face major elections. Notice how they push the Russian narrative. Very interesting, considering the fact that people saw right through it here in the United States, as I'm sure they do in the EU. And it just makes me wonder why these control freaks find it necessary to blame Russia for their own problems. Because really what this is a crisis of leadership. You know, over in the EU, they have, just like in the United States, raped and pillaged and plundered the people, and the people are pissed. And they come up with this cockamamie immigration policy, and it's cockamamie because it shouldn't even be happening in the first place, because the people from Syria and the Middle East should not have been displaced in the first place, because we should never have been there in the first place. But I digress. It also debunked a story published in late December by Russian state news agency RIA Novosti, claiming that 700,000 Germans were leaving the country every year because Chancellor Angela Merkel's refugee policy. I tell you, there's a lot of people that are pissed off about the refugee policy, and rightfully so, especially when it violates the law. You know, as hard as it is sometimes to swallow the fact that we have draconian laws, not only just here in the United States, but over in Europe, it's hard to believe that those laws that are put in place by these lawmakers aren't adhered to by these lawmakers. They're the ones that put it in place, yet you notice how they're always above the law. And we're expected to just go in lockstep with them wherever they go. And that's just not the way it is. And that is what is given rise to the populist movement, not just in the United States, but all across Europe. Why? Because people are pissed. They're tired of being fleeced. They're tired of being lied to. And that's why you've had the rise of independent media. Again, this is only out of a want and desire for legitimate, credible news that they don't get, that the people don't get from the mainstream media. It goes on. It says, there is a network of people and organizations like stopfake.org, which concentrates specifically on disinformation about Ukraine. Isn't that interesting? I wonder, and of course, you know, you probably will never be able to find out who owns stopfake.org, who runs it, none of that, because it's probably not true, but I'll bet you if you trace that money back, it is government money. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Because, honestly, about the Ukraine, we're just going to settle right in on that. That's what they specialize in. They have a staff that investigate and write disproof statements which are being turned into a searchable, multilingual online database. That's what this task force does. The task force is part of the European External Action Service, which was set up in 2015 specifically to address Russia's ongoing disinformation campaigns. The scale of the challenge, so one EU official says, was never commensurate to our resources. Of course, because there's so many independent media sites out there that you can't possibly be able to, track them all, do all that kind of stuff. Not unless they've got like serious AI resources. But they even go on to call us troll factories, because that's what we are. Absolutely, if you consider trolling, holding them accountable, holding their feet to the fire. That's exactly what's going on. The people in Davos, they know that. And so they're coming up with some sort of consensus, according to Casey Research. They're saying that Davos, or the people at Davos, want more welfare and more warfare. Of course they do. You give crumbs to the people, keep them quiet. Warfare drives profits. Profitability up, life is good. That's exactly what's going on. And that's exactly what they're talking about. Starts out, it says, it's a big club and you ain't in it. He says, I often think about these words spoken by great comedian George Carlin when I read about the World Economic Forum meetings in Davos. Every year, global elites descend on Davos to discuss the big issues of the day in a Bilderberg-like conclave. This year, George Soros was there, and so was Bill Gates. The most important world leaders go, as do CEOs of the world's largest companies, mainstream media bigwigs, and prominent academics. Central bankers attend too. In short, it's a bunch of out-of-touch, self-anointed elites meeting to hand down from above their uniformly bad solutions to world problems. Then, they pat each other on the back for all the good they're doing. And no matter what the problem, their prescription is always more welfare, more warfare, more money printing, more taxes, and of course, more centralization of power into global institutions. It's interesting, and this is pointed out too in this piece. Donald Trump, Ron Paul, they've never been invited to this type of event. Why? How come you don't have dissenting viewpoints? How come it truly is just a club or a clique that control the world? If they were truly interested in your best interest, wouldn't you think that they would get more people involved? I mean, that's kind of the way I feel about it. That's how I think. Because they know they're going down by the head. They know it. And there's nothing that they can do about it. But they're going to try like heck to be able to salvage whatever they can of that global blueprint that they've had for so long. But it's that global blueprint that has totally and completely decimated the United States with regards to infrastructure, quality of life, cost of living, you name it. Boingboing.net has a great piece. A nation of flints. America has 1.2 million miles of deteriorating lead pipes, and they'll cost $1 trillion to fix. Listen to this. Lead pipes have a lifespan of about 75 years, and America's lead pipes are about 75 years old. 3,000 American municipalities have 1.2 million miles of lead pipe, and it's all overdue for replacement. But, just like government, there's no plan in hand to do so, and any workable plan will cost about $1 trillion to execute. So children are poisoned by lead, and of course they'll grow up with cognitive deficits and physical disabilities. And cities across America face cuts to their infrastructure spending, accompanied by cuts to public health services. Why? Because government. That's why. It's really simple. It's a simple answer. But because they have cut public health services, they don't detect these early signs of lead poisoning. And cuts to water quality inspections, of course, have also furthered the damage. And all of this is driving the water prices up even before they fix the mess. Listen to this. Over the next few decades, water prices are anticipated to increase 4 times their current level. Prices could go higher if cities look to private providers for water services who have a tendency to charge higher rates than public providers. These pressure on water systems, combined with the fact that the water is a vital necessity to sustain life, place the issue at the forefront of 21st century infrastructure challenges. And while studies have found that Americans are willing to pay more to maintain and ensure access to water resources, this willingness to pay may conflict with their fundamental ability to pay for water. The report notes that water prices across the country have risen by about 41% since 2010, and if this particular trend continues, 35.6% of American households will not be able to afford water services within the next 5 years. Let me say that one more time. 35.6%, over 1 in 3 of American households will not be able to afford water services within the next 5 years. My friends, that is a major crisis. One that, when they talk about infrastructure spending, I wonder what Congress has in store for us there, because I've seen a lot of talk about bridges and roads, but I haven't seen any talk about the nation's water supplies. And I would be interested to see what kind of solutions the Trump administration and Congress have with regards to our crumbling infrastructure. And roads and bridges, while important, are not near as important as the water that's needed to sustain life. And that's just the simple truth, folks. This was your dailysheeple.com Daily News Brief. I'm Joe Joseph. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and subscribe to our newsletter over at thedailysheeple.com. Some great stuff comes out, goes right to your inbox. How convenient. Have a great day, everybody, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care.